report them. Let's get out of here and just shoot to the interwebs real quick. I'll just go to Gallup, not Gallup. Let's go to Gallup. Pick a topic, friends. Want to go with the Obama approval rating? 31% say now is a good time to find a quality job. Americans' confidence in government to handle Ebola drops. Ooh, drops! Let's look at that. Oh, look at that. Very scary picture. Pink ribbon, breast cancer awareness. Very nice. Okay, Americans are no more worried about getting Ebola now than they were 2 weeks ago, but they have become somewhat less confident in the federal government's ability to deal with an outbreak of the virus. Okay, hang on. Less confident in the federal government's ability to deal with an outbreak of the virus. Let's see. Worried about getting, now, somewhat confident. Okay, they're talking about this, right? Very somewhat confident in federal government's ability to handle Ebola. It was at 60%. It's dropped to 52. What percentage point drop is that? 8, correct? In order for us to believe that that is exactly 60%, who would they have had to have asked? Every single American, right? Same thing with 52. That means they didn't. So that means we have to put what on this? Right, that's not 60%. It's 60% plus or minus something. And that's 52% plus or minus something. Fair? Good, maybe. Let's go look for it. It's in the article. We have to go find it. Here we go.
So are they really trying to track every week?
They do that constantly. Yes, thank you, Ted Turner.
Okay.
Where is it? Where is it? Where the hell is it? Oh, here it is. Plus or minus 4 percentage points, okay? That's the margin. So what we got to do is we got to get back into here. Let's use the graph. The graph's good. That is not 60%. It might be as low as 56. It might be as high as 64. Okay. It's still above half. It's still above half. So we can claim that the majority have this characteristic because it's above 50%. I'm okay with that. The question is it above this? Well, let's see. 52 might be as low as what?
48.
And might be as high as? Oh, that's damn close, isn't it? That's damn close. I mean, one could argue either way on that one because they both could equal a 56. I'd say, this is a 243 answer, I'd say go get more samples. Because if you get more samples, what's going to happen is those bars are going to shrink. It'll go from plus or minus 4 to plus or minus 3. But then you got to check the percentages again. So this one, I put my shoulders up. I'm not sure about this one. I'd have to see the next batch of data or ignore it. If you go back to 61, we get a clearer picture, right? There is a difference from 61 to 52 because that's 9 apart, and that means those intervals aren't going to touch each other. But it's too close to call on this one. So when they say confidence drops, I say it's too close to call. They might be touching. It might be the same as it was last week. This is the problem with saturated news. You get all of it all the time. Take a break. Let's go watch Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, Jerry, go.
Did you say that in your either 243 or 244 that you look at why a sample size is big enough or not?
Absolutely. Talk about it all the time. How big a sample do you need? As it turns out, and I didn't even catch the sample size on this one. Was it like 1,000 or 900 or something?
1,017.
Yeah, 1,017. If you get to 1,039, it shrinks to 3% margin of error. Just so you know. I mean, that's a number I've got in my head from years and years of doing this stuff. So there are certain numbers that are large enough to get certain values done. But yeah, that's part of 243 and 244.
That's funny because like that same poll that you just did was 1018.
And it was for, yes. It's also a function of how large the percentages are. Those other percentages were further away from 50. I mean, again, I say further away. Brittany's going to ask me, wait, how far is far? It's all about, right? It's all about how far is far. Are we far? Are we near? What's far? What's near? These are good questions. And the best you can do is you can draw what I call it a net. It's called a confidence interval. These lines we're drawing is a confidence interval. And you're confident your answer is between them. You just don't know where it is between them. Gesundheit. Please.
These Gallup polls, are they like yes or no questions?
They give you the entire sampling method job. If you look right here, view complete question responses and trends, they'll actually give you every question they ask. Very often they are simply yes or no questions, or rate on a scale of 1 to 5, things like that. Why do you ask?
How could there be a margin of error
because they didn't ask every single American.
Right.
The only way they could possibly know exactly 64% of voting age Americans said something is if they asked every single voting age American. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's a great question. You have to admit, error is not a bad thing, statistically. Why do I have this on my neck? Error is not a bad thing. It's much easier to breathe now. It's not a bad thing. It's something to have to deal with. Whenever you take a measure with your ruler, if you're building like a wall or you're building a frame for a picture, and you cut with a saw, there's an error involved in that, right? The question is, can you minimize the error so that the error is so minimal you can't tell? Or can you mitigate the error, Ebola virus 3? Can you mitigate the error so that you've covered yourself?
So it's all based on population.
It's based on the sample drawn from the population. You guys are asking very good 243, 244 questions. I love these, by the way. Please!
So, with sources that interpret data more precisely, do they choose numbers within the margin of error that are towards the center? Do you know what I'm saying? So maybe not like...
Oh, I see. So yeah, it goes from 56 to 64, but since 60's in the middle,
Right.
it's more likely to be 60. Think of it as an aquarium. I like this imagery because my son got for his birthday a very large aquarium. We've been saving this thing for years. So think of this. Think of this as an aquarium that there are fish swimming around in, and the fish is the percentage you're looking for. Is the fish usually there?
No.
Where could the fish be? Anywhere in the tank. So you can't pick the middle and say that's more likely, because that's just based on where your sample landed. It's somewhere in the tank, and you can't say with certainty where it is.
But at the same time, sources use those different numbers to manipulate. What?
That doesn't mean they did it right.
Right.
Right, you gotta remember. How many times do you guys hear of a plane going down and all the people on board being killed? You've heard this in the news, right? How often have you heard in the news about someone dying, getting kicked in the face by a horse?
Right.
Anybody? More people die every year getting kicked in the face by horses than die in airplane crashes. Why do you hear about the airplane crashes? Because it's reported. Why is it reported? If more people get kicked in the kicked in the face and die, why is it reported? Why do they feed off of it?
They're like, oh my gosh, it's an airplane
Because
because not
they
everyone
fly.
rides horses. There's not everybody rides horses. I mean,
Not everybody flies in planes.
but that's.
I would argue the more people ride horses than fly in planes.
It's more widely used.
And it's
So-
Maybe.
exciting.
I'm only doing this for you to
Yeah,
prove
no,
the
I know
point.
why you're doing
You know
it.
I'm doing it.
trying to- Yeah.
You're good. You're a plays devil's advocate. I don't know why that is done. I blame Ted Turner. I'm dead serious in this. I blame Ted Turner. Because when I was younger, you got your news in 1 hour watching an anchor at night.
Yes.
And it was filtered down, and what was decided was what is important to know. What they put on the news, 95% or more of it is complete fluff that you don't need to know. Your day will go on just fine without knowing that. I don't need a traffic report from downtown Prineville. I don't. Or from downtown Bend, for that matter. I don't need to know this. We're getting inundated with information, but the information comes at us and we don't know how to deal with it. That's why I'm so happy you're sitting in 105. Yes, Emily.
I'd say that the reason why the airplane crash gets reported more often than someone getting kicked in the
Sure.
face by a horse is because there are more deaths than one sitting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. But then I come back and say, but there are more deaths per annum by horse death. I think that's exactly right. The catastrophic nature of a plane crash. Yeah. But then it makes me wonder, why is Ebola making the news? Because it's new? I'm guessing because it's new.
It's new, 'cause I'm sure the first time someone got kicked in the face by a horse,
It was reported. 1776. The Lapine Gazetteer.
and then as soon as someone died,
Ed McGillicuddy. Poor old Ed McGillicuddy. Cut down his prime by his damn horse Betsy. I'm sure you're right, Mike.
someone dies in a jetpack accident, they're gonna out there.
And I got no problem with that, except for the fact that then it becomes a panic. Then it becomes, I'm not flying, because flying is dangerous. No, flying is you got in your car today, right? That's infinitely more dangerous statistically than flying in a plane.
They say you're more likely to get in a car accident on the way to the airport than actually
You're more likely to die walking down the stairs of your house than you are in a plane crash. I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it, please.
I guess my question just is, when interpreting data, the more infallible sources, would they be the ones with the more median, like
Yes.
the
Well, no.
smaller ratios?
My question for you is, what does interpreting data mean?
It means like distilling scrambling through all the BS to finding actual information that could potentially have some nuggets of truth in it.
Here is the distillation process right here.
Is it with a smaller?
Here it
portion
is.
of error?
Here's the distillation process. Put that graph in front of people and let them form their own conclusions. Don't tell them what the graph is showing them. Trust that people have the correct training and intelligence to know what that graph is showing them. And the only way that happens is if you actually take statistics classes at a place like this. You can look at that and go, oh look, it's going down. But now, you won't think that way anymore, I would hope. Especially if I have to put a quiz or two up next week. When you look at it and go, oh, it's going down, but what is down? Did it actually go down, or is it a random fluctuation? If you look at the stock market, for example, over the past 100 years, it's trended upward on average. But it goes back to your question we started the day with, Tiffany. It goes like this. Sometimes it drops and it recovers. I just heard two successive headlines this week. Dow has its worst day ever in years, followed by S&P and whatever the other one is, NASDAQ have their best day in years. Of course they do, because they reverted back to average. It makes perfect sense. It's like firing the coach when your team does well. Team did great this year. That's because the old coach you fired was making them work their asses off and you fired them prematurely. It's called regression to the mean. You ever heard, one more, then I'm going to take you guys outside and get some more data. You ever heard the Sports Illustrated curse? You put an athlete on Sports Illustrated, and almost infallibly, their career goes through a slump immediately after. You ever heard this? It's a bit of a phenomenon. You know why? Why do people get put on the cover of Sports Illustrated?
They had a great year.
Because they had a great year or a great month or a great season or a great week. Above average. At their peak of the grade, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, unless their grade has technically changed that quickly over that short period of time, they're going to revert back to their average, which then appears like a slump because they perform less well, but they're still on average. We suck at long-term analysis. This is go back to your question. We are terrible as human beings. I'm looking at myself very closely. We are terrible at long-term analysis. That's why we focus on the plane crash versus all the horse deaths. Is that fair? Maybe?
Yeah.
Good.
It's fair. I'm kind of like curious.
You're taking 243, right?
No.
Oh, yeah, you are.
I am.
Oh, yeah, you are. Because we have these discussions daily. And it's part of it. It's definitely, there's no quick and easy answer. And that's what Americans hate too. They want X to equal 2. I say, it can't be. It's got to be plus or minus. There is no 2 in the world. I mean, do you guys take exactly 1.23 hours to get from point A to point B? No, you have a wiggle room around that. You're somewhere in there, yeah? Okay, I want to hear some more questions. We'll talk as we walk. Bring your stuff with you. We're going to